It's on. Good morning. Here we are gathered again together for a wonderful, wonderful morning to have a time with a musical program. And I know here at Brandon Oaks, music is very, very important to us. It's, well, of course, this is, I should say, too, it's Educators Club at the same time, and how nice that Educators Club's starting off with a musical program. We are very fortunate to live in a community that is full of musical organizations, professional musical organizations, and we can hear everything from classical to pops to orchestral music to solos in any time. I know you all feel like I do that music of all descriptions is what brings us together, and it is rich with history and represents cultures and facilitates peace as well, because many people who cannot speak the same language but might, for example, Japanese might enjoy English music, we might enjoy Japanese music. So we're just very, very fortunate to live in a very musical community. Today we have a performance hosted by three of our local musicians, but known well beyond Roanoke. Dean Vance is our own. She's a resident of Brandon Oaks, and she's a native of Michigan and has studied at the University of Wisconsin, Eastern Michigan, and University of Michigan. She has taught music to young children and adults in her private studio, as well as students at the University of Michigan. Prior to her residence in Roanoke, she lived in Louisville, Kentucky, and was church organist at Highland Presbyterian Church, and managing director and piano faculty member of the Academy of Music of St. Francis the Fields. Locally, she accompanies and presents concerts at some of our religious services and some other programs right here at Brandon Oaks. The second musician of our program today is Misha Wiley. Now, I've known Misha since he was a toddler and attended his performances, and he said he was last here 2 years ago. But when I did a Google search to learn a little bit more about his background, the first thing that came up were his NCAA Division I cross-country championship scores. He's a graduate of Patrick Henry School and is now high school and is now a sophomore and scholar athlete at the Cormier Honors College in Longwood University. He received a scholarship for study of business and administration for political science and a minor, and will graduate 1 year early from Longwood. This May, he will travel as an Honors College Foreign Studies Scholar to Thailand as a part of his business studies. He's a member of the Longwood String Quartet and a principal of the Longwood Chamber Orchestra. On break from Longwood, he often does musical performances such as Brandon Oaks, and he does have to go back tomorrow to Longwood. But not to skip over his NCAA performances. He competes in 8K and 10K runs and was the winner in the Blue Ridge Marathon as a junior in high school. Next year, he will run with Division I varsity with both the Longwood Cross Country and the Spring NCAA track team. So don't anybody try to race him. And we are privileged, of course, to have with us once again Dr. David Stewart Wiley, music director and conductor of the Roanoke Symphony Orchestra for over 25 years. Actually, we're into our 26th year. He holds a doctorate from Indiana University and degrees from the New England Conservatory of Music and Tufts. Before Roanoke, he conducted symphonies in Boston, Atlanta, Buffalo, Cincinnati, and several more cities, as well as with international orchestras. Under his direction since 1996, the RSO has experienced artistic growth with expansion in performances and music education for youth and children, as well as certainly for senior citizens. His honors include the Roanoke All-American City Award, Citizen of the Year, Distinguished Music Educator Award from Yale, the Perry Kendig Award for Service for the Arts, and a Paul Harris Fellow from Rotary, and he was honored recently by a joint resolution in the Virginia House and Senate. He has performed with major orchestras in the U.S. to include Baroque to contemporary, and often conducts sitting right at the piano. He appeared in international settings in Romania, Germany, Hungary, and Czech Republic, and produced a number of albums from jazz to classical. So, back to Roanoke. Let's welcome our three guests.
this morning. I woke up with joy, knowing that I would be here to see dear, dear friends. And it is our privilege to be here with you and to start the new year. So much great news to share with you about things going on with your Roanoke Symphony Orchestra in the lives of the Wiley family. I'll a little bit later ask Misha to say some words about his own studies and journey that led him to where he is. But thought we would start with a piece that is maybe the oldest recorded tune associated with Christmas. It is Our Lady Greensleeves, as it was listed in the 1500s, and was so named in As You Like It by Shakespeare. That's how old it is. But it really even serves past the Christmas season into the new year. And this version that we do is a modification of a setting by Ralph Vaughan Williams, the great English master, with our own touches. It starts off with a little cello cadenza, Misha will do. And then in the middle, to contrast, we have the English tune, Lady Joan, and then the tune comes back with its beautiful conclusion. So I hope you enjoy our setting of Our Lady Greensleeves. so because I like to stay right to the time, I put my watch up there, and of course, 30 minutes ago, the battery decided to stop working. So the great Janet Johnson, who deserves another round of applause right here. So it looks like lunchtime, so let's go. No, it's not like Janet, thank you. Thank you so much. And I'm really glad you mentioned the fact that you have known Misha since, we've been on European trips together, watched little recitals, and there is no greater joy as a parent than being able to play music or do any artistic collaboration with one's teens. And we've done it with Misha and with Mars, and thank you. I know you're getting ready to go back for another busy semester and has really been knocking it out of the park, both as a scholar and as an athlete. But what is most pleasing to me, Misha, is that you are a kind and generous person and that you're following your heart in everything you do with the running and with the music and with your friendships. And we all, this amazing extended village that is Virginia's Blue Ridge and the whole region, has been there, including the schools and the teachers you've had and our extended family, of which we consider our friends at Brandon Oaks part of that family, quite honestly. And so I thought maybe, Misha, you could say a little word. You went through Patrick Henry, and maybe talk a little bit about how that helped shape what you do.
Good morning. It has been such a pleasure and a privilege to be able to play in front of your smiling faces once a year since, honestly, as young as I could remember. But that's not the only privilege I've had growing up. Patrick Henry High School and Roanoke City Public Schools in general has done a wonderful job not only preparing me as a scholar to go to college, but placing such a great emphasis on music education and dual enrollment, which I can credit to being able to graduate a year early. If it wasn't for Roanoke City Public Schools, I wouldn't be the musician, the scholar, and the athlete that I am today.
Thank you. Thank you. Misha, actually, this summer, after he gets back from his Thailand trip to study business, will be, you're doing an internship with Walker Phillips. You're doing business and so forth. And so pretty soon you're going to have to help me with taxes, sir. Going through there. Yeah, that is excellent. He said, pretty soon I'll be doing your taxes, he said, going through there. But no, and among the many opportunities, he played with Jeff Midkiff at Patrick Henry in the orchestra and did all the district and, all those auditions. The Youth Symphony was a vital part, working with Maestro Glazebrook. And I thought I could just fill you in on a lot of the other updates with your Roanoke Symphony's education program. So with Maestro Glazebrook's retirement, we have a new youth orchestra conductor. His name is David Webb, and he's doing a wonderful job. I was actually performing with them in December for their December concert that they did. And coming out of the pandemic, it's been great that the kids at the schools have this amazing resource to be able to get back in there. The isolation, honestly, of that year and a half, you went through it. You had your running. You could get out with your friends. But for a lot of kids, they were just stuck in front of their screens, which is not a healthy thing. And so having the opportunity to come back and collaborate with music, that unspoken bond between musicians, be it band or choral or instrumental, was really, really important. And so it's great to see the youth orchestra being rebuilt and the junior strings going on. We continue with the symphony to have many programs in the schools, partnering with them, supporting our amazing local teachers and all that they do to make the arts absolutely vital part of the education. And honestly, it is those educational programs that emphasize the arts where you get the best results for the kids. I think that certainly having that experience going through there has helped you, Misha, with all of that. And it's wonderful that you're continuing both your music and other pursuits and I just can't wait. You know what I was thinking, and I never told you this, when I arrived as music director here, I was only 8 years older than you are now. That's true, right? You know, so I don't expect you to be music director. You'll go on to bigger, even greater things than. But isn't that remarkable? I mean, this journey that we've been on, that more than half of my life has been here, and I've had the opportunity and offered to, you know, move on to other orchestras. But I stay here because it's an amazing place to raise a family, to build something of meaning. And I can continue, as I do travel to New York to work with Long Island. I travel as a guest conductor. As we were sitting in the coffee room there, I got a text from the orchestra in Italy trying to finalize the program that I'm going to be doing in a month in Bari, Italy, down near the heel of the boot. And so that'll be fun. I had been with them a couple of years back, and they're making the mistake of inviting me back. So I will eat all of the fish that come in to this port city here of Bari, Italy, for sure. It's fresh fish. I don't know if I told you. So after the last concert I did with them a couple of years ago, the concert ended, and we didn't start the first course of our dinner until about 12:45 in the morning. Right, you know this. You've been, it's like the first course starts at 12:45. I think 1:45. The third one, the pasta was coming, and then the fish, and then the 3 desserts. And would you like some coffee? Well, I think I would like some coffee for breakfast. At 3:00 in the morning. So, I remain grateful, deeply, deeply grateful for continuing to serve and do what I love. And Misha's younger sibling, Mars, is doing great. Now a senior in high school and busy with art and looking at colleges and figuring out the next step. And honestly, what I say is, do what makes your heart sing, right? Do what makes your heart sing. Remarkably, you can probably find a way of making a living doing that if you do that, and something that will make a difference. And that is truly one of my great privileges as music director, is I can see in people's eyes the impact that the music makes. After a concert or coming out of the pandemic, people coming up said, I had so missed being together safely for live performance. And, we experimented with online recording, but it simply was not the same. There's nothing like being together here, seeing the connection that we can bring, and it is one of the great joys and privileges. And my beloved wife, Leah, is as busy as ever. She continues to coach voice and do personal fitness training and travel with me. She's actually heading back to Germany and Hungary to see her relatives next month, and her dad, who still lives and works in Budapest. So she'll visit Dr. Paul Marr there, and he's working on, I think, his 25th book or something like that. He's a Holocaust survivor, and is doing his latest book is on how it was that he and other Hungarian Jews were able to survive. It's a remarkable thing, and I've spent a wonderful hour talking with him about that music and justice go hand in hand. Janet, we were talking about that with your son, Kevin, right? Peace, music and peace. And, Misha, you've traveled a lot and will travel more. You will see how quickly, even if you don't speak the language, when you go to Thailand in May, if you can find a cello that you can play, you will have fast friends for life there. And that's been my experience. I don't speak Hungarian, but if I play music with a Hungarian musician, there is a bond there, right? That is truly remarkable. And all of the arts can do that. Another project I wanted to share, getting back to RSO and education, is our Painted Violins project. Maybe 15 or so years ago, we did a project where there were a number of discarded old violins, unplayable violins that had lost their strings and bridges and so forth. And the idea was to commission local artists to paint those violins, and then we auctioned them off to help the string programs in the region. I believe Jim had made some beautiful stands and so forth with that. And so that is happening again. In fact, the deadline for applications for other artists is upon us for that. But the artists will paint these violins, and there were some remarkable, beautiful things, and it benefited youth and education, and the artists got their work featured on violins, and it was so successful many years ago that we've decided to do that. So at the symphony office there off of First Street near the Carilion Hospital, I walk into the office, and there is a pile of violin cases about yay high of all the old donated violins from people's attics that are unplayable and so forth that the artists will have to paint. So that's among the other exciting educational things we're doing. Very happy to report that the Roanoke Symphony is now in its 70th year in its most stable and solid position ever. And that is exciting in these insecure times. And the reason for that is that we are really fiscally prudent with the resources that we are entrusted to. We have allowed our endowment to grow, and there are other funds that continue to go that help to support our education and connection in the communities. We balance our budgets, and at the same time are always looking for new and innovative ways to connect with our communities, plural. One of the things that's important to me is that we never lose sight of the great traditions of the orchestra, the great masterpieces, and never compromise on all of that, but find new audiences to build and supplement that. And the growth of the pop season is an example of that here in our community. When I arrived, there were individual pops concerts, no series. We used to do just individual ones, and now we've created it. The Holiday Pops, which we just had again in December, is now the largest holiday concert in the Commonwealth of Virginia, just the first concert, and we do 3 more throughout the region. And the success of that, the joy that brings, the resources it brings allows us to help support some of the other things we do. And we tried different kinds of things. In the fall, we did some of the Broadway favorites. I think many of you were there for that at the tables and in the chairs. This spring, we have the music of John Denver, Country Roads, Take Me Home, all kinds of beautiful stuff by the late John Denver with the full symphony. And then we're doing another one of our fun rock and roll shows with the symphony, the music of Pink Floyd, in June. The classical series, a lot of exciting things going on in the coming weeks. I'll be back and forth to New York, and then I come back. Our February Master Works concert at Shaftman Hall. We have an afternoon performance and on Sunday, and then a Saturday night performance, and that is the famous Mozart Piano Concerto. Beautiful, beautiful concerto in A by Mozart. And then the second half is a Tchaikovsky symphony, The Winter Daydreams, which will be fun. The pianist is a wonderful woman making her debut, Marika Brunacki, and she is excited to come and be with us. And that's one of my great joys, is to find young talent. We had a young Polish violinist in the fall, Kinga Augustine, who made her debut with us, and she was a joy. Leah and I had her over, and she has a little cat which remarkably looks exactly like our cat, Squirrel. And so we just, we had our rehearsal there, and then I made her a salad, and all she wanted to do was sit out on the porch, and she played with the cat. And I'm convinced that 30 minutes with that cat made for her beautiful Tchaikovsky performance. So, it's really exciting being able to feature young talent and do that. The March concert, we feature our principal timpanist, Annie Stevens, and another of her colleagues in a beautiful new percussion concerto by Greek and Australian composer. The last name is an interesting name, Psthas, P-S-T-H-A-S, but it is beautiful piece called The All-Seeing Sky, and the sounds, the tonal palette of the percussion with the full orchestra is beautiful. And then Holst the Planets is one of our favorites. That was one of the pieces when I was your age, Mish. I heard Gustav Holst, The Planets, and I'm like, I have to be a conductor. I love this music so much. And so we're going to present that for our audiences in March. And then we welcome back, it's been many years, but my distinguished colleague and good friend with whom I've recorded, Norman Krieger, will be back in May for the Beethoven Choral Fantasy and a piano concerto by Brahms, the concerto in D minor by the great Johannes Brahms, and then the chorus is singing with us on the Choral Fantasy. So those are among the many concerts that we have here. And I left a couple programs from December out here, and in the back are brochures. And if you can't come, you can hear rebroadcasts on WVTF. But it is such a joy. And as I like to say, for the Schaffman concerts, when I see the Brandon Oaks bus roll up, then I'm ready to go. Then I'm ready to go. That really sets the stage for me with that. Oh, cool. Look, I just tap it, Janet, and it comes right up there. Awesome. So let's lead into a piece. You want to grab your cello? We're going to do two of mine. And these are two short pieces that I composed a few years ago, both for film. I think it's been a couple of years since I've played the first, but I don't think I've played the second here for you. The first is Concentric Circles, and Misha graciously agreed to, he hasn't seen music in a couple of years for this, but you just picked it up. That's one of the things that is really cool, going through there. I'm thinking it's all the running that does that. It expands your mind. But this was from the Jane Seymour film Lake Effects, and the name is Concentric Circles. And actually, you were there when I did. There's a full orchestra version that I've done with the Boston Symphony and some others. Misha came to Boston when I did that. So maybe it's etched in your brain from my old hometown there. And we went to Legal Seafoods. That's what I remember. The Boston Symphony was good, but Legal Seafoods. We also went to Union Oyster House, too. That's the other one, too. Union Oyster House. That's a good place. All right, so we're going to do Concentric, and then probably without any pause, we'll launch into Blue Ridge Spirit. I wanted to say what that one is. So Landon with Visit Virginia's Blue Ridge came to me and said, we advertise for our region all over the United States. Come visit here, bring your business here, relocate. It's a great place to live and work and so forth. And so this second tune that comes after Concentric Circles will be, was the piece that has been used. In fact, I turned on the television in my hotel on Long Island, and I heard the promo for it. Come to Virginia's Blue Ridge, and there's a picture of the star, right? And then you see the VTC, Carilion Med School, and all the rest of that. And then we recorded it with the symphony, the full orchestra version. It's called the Blue Ridge Spirit is the name of my piece. So we have Concentric Circles and then Blue Ridge Spirit. Music by yours truly. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how we get our information about the arts and symphony and a lot of the changing things with that. And then after that, I'm going to invite my distinguished colleague who will come join Misha and me for a piece. I want to allow some time for questions, and you might say, David, I've always wondered about this and that with the symphony, or how is such and such going. Would love to take a few minutes for that, and then we will end after that with a piece dedicated to our dear friend Bob Warner, who has left us and is deeply missed and remembered by so many of us. And Bob worked with me on the symphony. I'll say a little bit more later before we dedicate that final piece to him. But first of all, wanted to talk about diversity and equity in our programming. Right now, a lot of arts organizations are really more focused on that from funding sources. But it's something that we at the Roanoke Symphony have tried to do now for 70 years with our partnership with the Friends of the Roanoke Symphony, with finding diverse composers and performers and artists that we do. It's really important that the symphony, with our programming and with the musicians, reflect the world in which we live. And what has been really heartwarming to me to see in the last 26 years as we've hired orchestras members to join us. And honestly, the personnel of the orchestra, with maybe a half a dozen exceptions, is completely different than it was when I took over. A lot of those are retirements, people move in and out of town and so forth, vacancies come up, and those who remain, extraordinary. I think the violinist Larry Chang, whom some of you know, has been playing since before I got here. Others, including Alicia Hugo, our principal flutist, John Smith, bassist. Wonderful, wonderful musicians. You know John because he does the wellness arts programs here. Wonderful, wonderful colleagues who remain playing at a very, very high level. So what I wanted to report is that we had auditions this last summer and hired 10 new string players, and it was pretty much the most diverse, talented group we've ever had come joining our orchestra. These are amazing women and men that have earned a position in the Roanoke Symphony through our auditions. We do the rounds behind a screen so that they are judged solely on their playing, and only in the last round does the screen come down and then we meet who they are. What's been fascinating to me is that more and more of the principals, people like Akemi Takayama, our amazing concertmaster, are women. And in fact, I think if you were to look at the principal positions in the orchestra, it's a pretty equitable distribution. And we have players from all over, many European countries, Ukraine. We have a lot of South American countries represented now more than ever. I mean, really all over the world, just to name a few, but a surprising number over the years from Venezuela. We've had folk from Costa Rica. I mean, just remarkable folk that have earned their positions in the orchestra. And so the collaborative spirit that brings as we get to work with new colleagues, and I try to feature them from time to time with programs, has been really, really good for us. And so that's just part of our multi-pronged approach to diversity and inclusion and equity in our orchestra. The most important thing really that we can do, however, is the partnership with the schools. And because in Roanoke City there are at least 90 distinct languages spoken at home among these kids, I feel very strongly that music has to be the birthright of every child, that it needs to start at the earliest possible age, that they have access to instruments. And in the city schools, I mean, you knew this, you had classmates that couldn't afford an instrument, and the city schools would loan them instrument for that. And honestly, if they wanted to or willing to take them home for the summer, it was a risk, but they were able to take them home for the summer. I know in September there were a lot of broken cellos that would come back and sit over there. But there's no better investment we can make than to make sure that kids have access to music from an early age and go through. And study after study has shown the benefits of that. I don't need to outline them here, from test scores to emotional health, physical health, ability to have conflict resolution, right? I mean, I think about that. I mean, you witnessed, I mean, it was a big urban school. You saw everything during the course of a day, from fights and worse to incredible compassion and caring and collaboration. And it were those kids, you know, when you're in a string quartet, you know, and somebody's not pulling their weight, you kind of find a way of negotiating so that they help them. Or if something's not sounding good, you find language that allows you to do that. It's not, you're playing flat. It's like, may I suggest we try to find a way of bringing the pitch center up? Or, you know, you find language that helps us in a collaborative way. And that helps kids and people when they move into the workforce. And you know, because of the dual enrollment program, that access to that stuff really pays dividends. I mean, I think the fact that Misha's finishing his undergraduate degree in 3 years rather than 4 is because of those dual enrollment programs that you mentioned there, and some other things, AP tests and so forth. But the CCAP program at Virginia Western Community College is incredibly important. You know, now an option that if you get a certain grade point average, you are automatically guaranteed 2 years of community college education. We need that as an option for our young people, as well as 4-year and beyond college track experiences. So that's exciting. The other thing that I alluded to earlier was about how we get our information. So I don't need to tell you, if you've been glancing at the Roanoke Times over the last couple of years, that things have drastically changed, right? They were rebought again by another outside firm. They have slashed their staff. And the danger is that if you're not reading about the Roanoke Symphony Orchestra and the Roanoke Times, you think, well, maybe things aren't going well. No, they just don't have a classical arts, you know, covering it. Tad Dickens can talk about pop stuff. So I ask myself, and I've been asking for years, you know, how do we get our information about, say, the symphony? We have a multi-pronged approach where we do still send out the old-fashioned brochures in the snail mail, and it arrives between 2 and 422 days when we mail it. And then we have a lot of digital targeted marketing, but a lot of our patrons are not online by choice or whatever, you know, going through there. And so we have many different fronts of how we get information out there to folk. But the mass media doesn't really focus on the classical arts because they cannot monetize it. They don't have really a good way to make money off of it, right? You can with popular culture. If you have a sensational story about, say, Beyonce or some this and that, and, you know, we know all about the clickbait stories, but the classical arts are something that take much more depth to cover. And, you know, for example, talking about the auditioning and the hiring process for the symphony is not something that most papers would devote column inches to. And so now we're seeing in our region things like Cardinal News popping up. Dwayne Yancey, the former editor, you know, he's editing that. And I find that really interesting as an option now, that they are there, because the Roanoke Times will continue to shrink, and who knows how much longer, honestly, that will be there. So we need to find other ways of connecting to it, you know. And so if you love, for example, the symphony or one of the ballet companies or Mill Mountain Theater, you know, making sure we're on the mailing lists and getting the newsletters, because that is a better way of getting it, because you're not going to get it from the mass media and even from the newspaper, because they're simply not covering it. The staff is gone or moved on to other things. And that's just the changing nature. I mean, I guess if I were to ask you, when was the last time you read a newspaper cover to cover? Right? And this is an intelligent, college educating, book learning kind of guy. And that generation does not read newspapers.
It's true.
Right?
I don't think I've ever seen someone read a newspaper under the age of 30.
Right, right. Under the age of 30, he's saying, none of his friends shoot too. So think about what the implications are for that, right? So we need to make sure that we get the word out about what's going on with it. And of course, the extension of that is what are we not covering in the local media about education, about politics, and so forth. I was thinking about this with the George Santos thing, and I don't want to get into politics. That's not the point of me mentioning it. But the fact that somebody was able to fabricate a resume and get elected is a failure of local media in not covering that, right? Just a little bit of digging, maybe you would have found that. And so a little bit of digging into the arts, okay, how are those education programs working? All of that is really, really important. So just food for thought. I don't have any solutions or answers other than us starting our own media company here, a newspaper that's focused to the art. And there have been conversations about that. Maybe the local arts organization should have one arts thing and we individually pay and have people really doing that. So I kind of wanted to share those thoughts with you because I've been thinking about it. And that's all a way of me leading to the fact that you should feel comfortable and happy and relaxed that your symphony orchestra is in good, solid foundation, that we are using the resources we have, that we are a very well-managed organization. Our administrative staff, our board are terrific, and our musicians are equally committed to our collaborative success. So we should feel good about that your orchestra is going to survive many more years and thrive. And honestly, that's one of the reasons why I continue to be committed to it and stay and do all of those things. So now it is my great pleasure to welcome over an amazing colleague. And you've heard Dr. Dean Vance and I do some programs here together. And she's graciously agreed to come and join Misha and me for some things. So please welcome Dr. Dean Vance. Wonderful colleague. And I'm going to move Janet's watch over here so that I can stick right there. I like this. You may not get this back, Janet. Sorry. I'm going to trade you my digital keyboard for you. Jim can put it in his workshop right there. So say goodbye to your watch. But here we go. Oh, perfect. We are just where we need to be. So first, Dean and I have a lovely setting. The music of Johann Sebastian Bach is so beloved to performers as well as music lovers all over. And this is a setting that we're going to do for dual keyboards. And some of you may remember, I brought this instrument before. I use it for some of my film scoring and other things, but it allows me to complement the amazing Steinway piano with different sounds, including choral things and other bell tones. And so you will hear this version of Jesu, Joy of Man's Desiring. And this is a little setting, and we're going to let Misha continue to rest for another minute. And then think about while this is playing, if you have some questions that you'd like to ask, and then we will do that final piece dedicated to Bob Warner. So here is Jesu, Joy of Man's Desiring, and I promise to focus this down so it's balanced in the speakers. Here we go. Okay, very good. Any questions? Say, David, I've always wondered about this or that. Any questions? Did Misha and I answer everything you ever wanted to know about and stuff there? Or is there anything else you'd like to say, Misha? Questions for me? You know, it says, Dad, when are you going to buy me a car for my junior year? And stuff there. And is it an 8-cylinder or something else there? Is it going to have a muffler? So our policy, I mean, he's alluding maybe to the first car that we bought him, for which I paid, I kid you not, $5. His very first car, we paid $5 for. It was worth every penny. Every penny. It had 4 tires, I think, right? Most of the time it had 4 tires, and it got you the 2 or so miles from our place near Virginia Western over to Patrick Henry most days. So, but seriously, any questions or anything? Yes. Yes, Mars is a wonderful violinist and also a visual artist, especially in digital media. Has done some wonderful work. So, but kind of keeps the art close to the vest. Occasionally things will appear, and when it does, Leah is thrilled. It's like, oh my goodness, you shared your art with us, right? Because it tends to be an inward private thing, which is kind of cool. So, but yes, and does a lot of that. Mars is at Community High School downtown, the very small and wonderful arts-based school there, right near the Taubman Museum and other things that are down there. It's a lovely place. Any other questions? Yes. Yes, a great question about collaborative effort. We have partnerships with really most of the local institutes of higher learning, from Virginia Tech, Hollins, Roanoke College, even Ferrum for many years. And that involves our musicians teaching there. We perform in those venues. Our destination series, the 1-hour series, we often, like this last fall, I recorded and performed a program of Italian music at Olin Hall at Roanoke College, for example. Hollins University, our summer music institute for many years, up until the pandemic, has been at Hollins University, and Virginia Tech, the Moss Center for the Arts there as well. So it's all about those partnerships, and a great question. Yes, and there was another one over here. Oh, Janet, yes. What are big changes you've seen in the arts world in Roanoke since you've been here 26 years? Yeah, that's a great question. Janet is asking, what are the big changes that I've seen over the years? So I think what it is, part of it I alluded to earlier, about harder to get the word out about what we're doing. There was the assumption years ago that people would just automatically subscribe to everything and do that. We didn't have any kind of pick 3 things, or not so much in the way of single ticket sale things. You'd buy the subscription and you would come. That has changed. The other is the nature of volunteering. As couples both work there, when we started with the Roanoke Symphony, all of the youth orchestra programs were done by the volunteer group. They ran the youth orchestra, and so much was done with volunteers. And that has shifted now to professional staff. And that means you have to pay professionals to do that. And it's harder to find those deep connections. If you have volunteers, say, coming and moving chairs every Sunday at the Roanoke Youth Store, you connect to the players, you get to know people. And so in a world where mass media and individual cell phone screens and our media rooms have separated us from one another, everything that we do that connects people in a world that does all it can to separate us really helps. So those are among the biggest changes. I think in the arts world, the arrival of Schaffman Hall as an opportunity for us has been a big one. The changes in the schools, and by and large, school growth goes up and down. There's kind of a swing right there. especially, when we had Dr. Rita Bishop, extraordinary superintendent. It was a great time for the arts in the schools, and we would do more and more partnerships here. So just more collaborations over the years. We would just do one kind of series with the symphony. I'll just speak now about the symphony. It was our Masterwork series, but we added a pop series, we added a destination series. We've added the program at Elmwood Park, which is their largest event, I think, in the summer with 5,000 people. So just from the symphony's perspective, we've done that. And I think there are more collaborations. For example, the ballet is with us. The chorus, regional choruses is with us. So those are a few of the things, but a great, great question. So again, I don't want to overstay my time, and the great Janet Watch tells me that before we go, we have time for one more piece. And this is a piece. Oh, do you had a quick question, too? I think we can. Yeah.
Having spent my life in music,
Yeah.
I'm concerned about what happens during the summertime to your symphony players. You're going to be playing at the Elmwood Park.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what kind of provision is made for salaries or whatever else?
Uh-huh.
I'm assuming that most of the players would need to have private studios or other kinds of jobs.
Yeah.
So
So our musicians are paid per service as opposed to salaries. So the good news is that for most of them, they are busy doing summer festivals, other work teaching at places like, Interlochen, like the Brevard Music Center, and many other programs around the country, and traveling and still working at various festivals during this. So that does help supplement. It's a whole interesting topic about the life of a freelance musician, like many of our players. And the ones that have faculty positions, like our concertmaster, like our principal trombone, Jay Crone, they have annual salaries and benefits where that's not so important. So we do look for extra work for our players, and that's why we add Elmwood, and we do summer festival things as well. A great question, an important point as we look out for the health and well-being of all of our musicians as citizens. All right, great. So this one, as I mentioned, I just have to say I could talk for hours about Bob, who worked with us and worked with me as the artistic advisory committee with the board of the Roanoke Symphony, an incredible human being, incredible musician. And as we finish up with this selection, this is the Percy Grainger setting of the tune from Country Dairy, known more familiar to us as Danny Boy. And Bob has been in my thoughts a lot. I've been thinking about...
it's the piece I end all my concerts.
Yes, and this is Dean's official theme song. In fact, I think there's a tattoo on your left arm that has, it's right there, I saw it. It says Mom next to it, and then Danny Boy. I'm kidding, of course it's not there. So this is the tune from Country Dairy, because Bob is with the Angels. And honestly, to many of us, the loved ones who are no longer with us, this is dedicated to them. If you've suffered a loss or dealing with something, this is for you as well. This is with great love. And after that, Misha, Dean, and I will take a bow, and we'll be around for a minute or two to greet you with that. But you are beloved to me and to us. Thank you for everything you do, and this is the tune from Country Dairy.